I want to get to know your Web3 creator playbook that you're using for Mint. And you just touched on some of them. I mean, I heard Substack, Farcaster. I mean, you talked about Discord. When I was thinking through this, what I see from you is podcast leading into free NFTs, leading into newsletter, and also leading into limited edition NFTs that aren't free. So those are some of the things I'm seeing online. But yeah, you share with me your stack and like how it all works together.
Yeah. Okay. I've never publicly talked about my stack in a whole kind of like comprehensive discussion. So I got to think about how I sort of funnel this. Okay. So one of the things that I try to focus on as a crypto native creator, okay, is I need to find a way to kind of like create a direct line of communication to my listeners and find a way to also, right, that's like the Web2 component, and find a way to sort of capture value and share value from like a Web3 component, right? So my content stack very much works on Substack. So I think I'm now almost at 30,000 subscribers on Substack, huge. Okay? And very much like Spotify, right? Apple Music, podcasts, and kind of using Buzzsprout to be my distributor and hosting platform for all my audio content. I also use YouTube, but I don't focus too much time on that. I just try to focus on like audio and writing. So those are like the ways I kind of propagate messages, and I trust the Substack algorithms in I guess Spotify and podcasting algorithms to sort of distribute my content accordingly. And then I try to find ways to funnel in and to try to reward users through free NFTs on my website. So if you go to adamlevy.io/NFT, every single season of the podcast, I give a free NFT. Okay. And I can sort of do this by kind of seeing how people are engaging with my content across Substack, right? And how they're sort of listening to my stuff across Spotify, how they're engaging with my newsletter, whatever it may be. And I integrate this free NFT element because it's a cool way to sort of like capture engagement and reward the user for being a participant in a specific season along the way, right? Why is that incentive? Why is that like important? Why do users care? Because they get to sort of collect this, what I call an NFT pin, a listener pin, okay? And they get to kind of like benchmark their participation on chain as a Mint Season 5 or Mint Season 6 listener. And then me on the other end, I can sort of like build my arsenal of content and distribution to reward these people accordingly, right? So one thing that I give to my pin holders is I give out a selection of additional content that's gated strictly for pin holders. So one thing that I did for season 5, which was last season, I created an updated database of the top 400 music NFT collectors with their Twitter, their wallet address, and their net worth, essentially on the platforms that they collect on. Because around that time, I was also doing music NFT related content, and I had a lot of creators listening, and they wanted to learn how they can sort of spin up their first music NFT campaign. So I gave them a database of those who sort of collect music NFTs, right? And by the way, this is all public information, right? It's just like someone needs to be crazy enough to take the time to do it, okay? So another thing that I do is like more exclusive content. So I create like specific articles and blog posts, let's say on Mirror, and I gate them using Bonfire. And based off that, they can use their pin to access like something that I release is like the free NFT, or what was it called? The art of free NFTs. Basically breaking down like why free NFTs are like the Trojan horse and what you could do is essentially as a creator to benefit as well.
Very cool.
And so I try to capture like email addresses as a creator, right? And also wallet addresses as a creator, because that allows me to create better content and better experiences for my listeners. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a question about the email addresses versus wallet in 1 second. But before that, coming back to the token gating, is there any metrics you're using or decisions on what you should be gating versus not gating? Or is that just, hey, this is a cool idea that I think really is valuable, like the database, and so that's what I'm going to gate, versus other things are open and free to anyone? Like, how do you decide what's gated and what's not?
I decide what's gated and what's not based off what I think is going to have the most amount of value. So my audio, my video content, my newsletters that I publish 3 times a week, like that's free to access because I think that's like the standard. Like that's what people should expect, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I should deliver, because if I underdeliver, then I'm not sort of like producing at the realm of what a creator should be sort of producing. Now, I could be completely psycho and be overthinking it, right? But the reason why I sort of gate the database or the additional articles, etc., is because, yeah, I want people to feel like there's some value in getting the pins, right? So you get access to this database, you get access to these additional articles. That's sort of like my mental model and lessons learned across 20 episodes of recording, and bring the practitioner who also kind of like applies his lessons, right, that he learns across the podcast. You get to access that as long as you take the effort and time to claim an NFT and spend some gas to claim the NFT, right? And I feel like to that extent, because I spent so much more time creating that myself and organizing that myself, that it should be rewarded accordingly to those who sort of take the additional steps themselves to access that content, right?
Yeah.
So audio, newsletter, etc., for free. Additional sort of like content that takes me longer to curate is what's gated, but still for free, right? It's still free to access. It's just gated.
Totally. Are you in when you put out these free NFTs, do you have the plan of the content that's going to be gated already, or is some of that just happening kind of naturally as you go?
Sometimes, typically it's like a week before I do it, or 2 weeks before I do it, because I'm able to really just like sit down for a minute and really reflect on all these conversations, look through all the blog posts that I even published on my own website, to the conversations that I have in the past, see what got the most engagement on Twitter, right? And what got the most amount of downloads, and sort of double down on those. Because if the metrics are telling me that those are the ones that did and perform the best, like those should be the ones that I sort of, double down on. I think another interesting thing is like what I've been experimenting with that extends beyond the newsletter is now posting on Lenster. Because I've realized that content creators do really well on Lenster in terms of how the content gets distributed. So I remember I did this one like commemorative post basically celebrating, a year in writing. 52 newsletters were published. Also published it on Lenster. It got over like 1,000 people collecting it, a bunch of likes, a bunch of comments. Now, some of the comments were questionable, of course, but there was some like legit engagement that then translated into more newsletter subscribers, right? Cool. So that's something I've been posting on and posting more on as well. Yeah.
Hey, that sounds like an example of a tip number one of experimenting, leading to growing your community. Very, very cool and insightful there. And I want to just say, you said you're trying to be a practitioner of some of these lessons you've learned. And that's definitely something that's in my next step too. So very, very timely comment. You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.